Welcome back, everyone, to Double Take, a football podcast. This is episode 43 of our summer specials, as we are covering all the news here in the off season before we bring you something new. But I'm your host, David Gonzalez, and I'm joined once again by my co-host, Daniel. How are you doing, man?
Good. Finally back recording after a while. I know we did one off with Dad and Mark, but just excited to be back. I feel like I'm way more silly when we're in like together group setting.
Yeah.
And I do like that. Those episodes come out really funny.
Yeah.
But like still like for the people who like sports, like talking about football, has a lot of that still. So, but glad to be back.
Yeah. So every single time we've done those episodes, I've always like afterwards, I'm like, man, I wish we would have recorded a video with it.
We'll figure that out. I think we'll figure out that kind of component. And I'm also like gonna order some more cable so that way everyone can have their own mic, because I thought it was really funny. Every time Dad wanted to say something, he would have to like run over, grab a microphone, and then say something.
Yeah.
And so, but I think I figured that part out. So
yeah,
it should be better next time.
Yeah, and I think we'll do another one here soon, because I plan on going back down for our birthday. And so we can do another episode there and then do a video component and just mess with it. See how. The only problem is that room is just very dark.
It is, but I feel like, but we definitely don't want to do it at Mom and Dad's house. Unless we're going to record it on an iPhone, do the freaking clapping back in the day, and then and then do that. But we could do that. I mean,
but we could also do it at your place.
We could.
Mm-hmm. So we'll talk about that. But we're here talking about training camp. Training camp is now here. It's up. It's active. All 32 teams are now in the thick of it. After, the time of this recording, it's Friday. Training camp for a lot of people started like yesterday, maybe Wednesday. For the Cowboys, it started yesterday. And this is not on the outline, but this is a football podcast. We are Cowboys already, and I want to rant just a little bit, because I caught
that Cowboys presser yesterday, didn't you?
Yes, I did. And what really made me mad was I was watching Speak, and I'm probably not going to watch Speak anymore, just because I'm so frustrated with how they talk about the Cowboys, and they're doing it for clicks. And we all know that they're doing it for clicks. People love it to bash the Cowboys or to talk about the Cowboys. It's how you make a lot of money. But the way that they were talking yesterday, they were talking like as Jerry Jones, like he's not the problem at all. You know, he's put these rosters together. They took a clip of what he said, because he said, you know what, I'm all in for this season. Dak Prescott, this is the last year of your contract. It's in the playoffs. And they snatched to that basically to once again say, Dak, it's on you. McCarthy, it's on you, which is not necessarily entirely wrong. But if you watch the presser as a whole, they were on defense mode from the jump. Like, the only questions that they were talking about were, why haven't you signed Dak? Why haven't you signed CD? Why haven't you signed Micah? And the only answer that they really could give was just, well, you know, when you look at these contracts and you look at, you know, it takes time, and you know, we know that we have to pay these guys, but we're all in, and all that kind of. It's like, okay, Jane Slater from NFL Network did a fantastic job. I felt like everyone was kind of like on their tiptoes, and Jane was just like, no, I'm asking the question. I was like, listen, this has happened with Ezekiel Elliott, and this has happened with Zach Martin, and you paid those guys to eventually be here. What's the difference of why can't you do that with CD? Because he's not here. It's like, if you're all in, why aren't all of your guys here paid if you're all in? And Jerry could never really answer the question. Then he compared himself to Patrick Mahomes and being an option quarterback when it comes to him being a GM. He'd be like, sometimes I pitch it out, sometimes I keep it in, I make these decisions. And he even said this statement of which, like, listen, I know that I've dropped the
Jerry's
ball
going
a
on the
couple
board.
of times, but I've won Super Bowls. I've had success in the past.
Mm,
So fans trust me that I know what I'm doing and will be good.
mm,
I don't know what to make of it. Say what you want about Dak Prescott. Say what you want about Mike McCarthy. Say what you want about the players on the field. There's a lot of people who's just like, hey, if they don't get this done, Dak needs to be gone. Mike McCarthy needs to be gone. Some people will say, get rid of all the players, just keep Micah and CD, and
mm,
just restart this thing. What I took away from that press conference is that if you're a Cowboys fan, yeah, you'll probably get rid of Dak and you'll probably get rid of Mike McCarthy.
mm-hmm.
But Jerry Jones did not give you any confidence that after he does that he's going to be able to put a team together to do more than what Dak and Mike McCarthy have already done. Just because he doesn't seem to be all the way there. Like he doesn't know what he's doing. And he's just like, I'm blessed to be here. I'm blessed to be the GM and owner of the Cowboys. And when I meant all in, I meant all in as the owner in this season. So I'm frustrated. Frustrated as a Cowboys fan. I know people have different reasons for being frustrated with the Cowboys, but ultimately I think it comes down to Jerry. The Cowboys can get rid of everybody that they want.
Mm-hmm.
I do not trust Jerry Jones to be able to put a team together to contend for a Super Bowl. And that's just how I feel.
No, I agree. I think the reason why I'm not up in arms, I'm not super upset about it, is because I have, like I told you, after the Buffalo Bills game,
Yeah.
I've lost complete trust and faith in these Dallas Cowboys. Right now, they're show me mode. You have to show me that you can do it before I believe in anything. Even, if we go through the season and we start like 10-0 or anything, I'm still going to doubt them. I still will, because they've proven that they can put 12-5 seasons together. They've proved that. But have they proven that they can go the distance through the postseason and not just Dak, but the entirety of the team? Can they all not be failures? Because and here's my frustration with Cowboy fans is that, I saw the poll. Everyone believes that Dak is the problem. They're not happy with Dak.
Yeah, they say he's overrated, the most overrated on the team.
My question is, where is that same energy for all these other guys, all these other so-called all pros? Like I don't know if it was on Speak. I don't know where I saw it, where they were talking about CeeDee Lamb. And
It's probably Speak.
Probably where like CeeDee Lamb is frustrated with Dak in the beginning of that Green Bay Packer game, that he was missing him not getting his targets, this and this and that. I think it was something Greg Jennings saying, which he's an idiot. But I remember distinctly Dak Prescott giving him plenty of targets at the start of that game. He just dropped them.
Yeah.
He dropped 2. That would have been first downs. And so for me, I think people are having revisionist history, which I think is where the Cowboys fans who are really upset, who are really bad on Dak, they were where I was 3 years ago, where they can't see anything but Dak Prescott. They can't see any other faults than Dak Prescott. But I'm at a place now where I can see, hold on, yes, Dak is part of it because everybody's part of it. That's just how sports works.
Mm-hmm.
But you talk about CeeDee Lamb, who's been dropping passes, who at times in the season, for the majority of the year, he did look like a top 10 wide receiver. But there was also other moments where I'm like, he's not perfect. He dropped passes. He didn't give a lot of effort at some points in the game. So he's also not perfect. Micah Parsons for the better part of his career, from November all the way to January, he disappears, does not show up. And I'm including every single one of his playoff games. Not one playoff game has he played that he's played well in. Not that I can remember.
Yeah.
But we don't put anything on Micah Parsons. We're willing to pay him $35 million. And Nick Wright kind of put this perfectly. In order for Dallas to keep all three of those players, they have to give CD more money than Justin Jefferson, which is about $35 million. Micah has already come out and said, I want to be the highest paid non-quarterback in the National Football League. So that's going to put him around $35 million as well. And to keep Dak, because you've waited so long, because Trevor Lawrence and all these other quarterbacks have gotten contracts. Trevor Lawrence got $55 million.
Yeah.
And he's won one playoff game. No All-Pros. Has he made a Pro Bowl? Not sure about that. The starting point for Dak Prescott is going to be $60 million. So you're talking about, what, $70 million, another 60? That's $130 million between the three of them.
Yeah.
And it's because, Jerry, you waited so long to sign them. You waited until every other person signed a contract.
Waiting for all the leaves to fall.
And you wanted to what? You wanted to get a discount after that? So for me, like, I take no stock in what Jerry Jones ever says anymore because he's a senile old man who doesn't know what he's doing. And so for the Cowboys fans who are frustrated like you, like, just expect this, because until someone else becomes the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, this is the reality. I'm in the belief right now that the Cowboys are now the new poverty franchise organizationally. Because they have money, they bring in revenue, they'll win 12 games just because they're the Cowboys. But if you're expecting them to do anything past that, it's not going to happen. And once Dak Prescott leaves, because I believe he is leaving, good luck winning 8 games. Good luck winning it. Because with this team, what this team is going to be after this year, good luck.
Yeah, I think where my frustration comes in isn't necessarily with ownership. I mean, it is. I am frustrated with ownership, but I think it's with those Cowboys fans who, and we've heard it on this podcast specifically. Savage is not here, so he can't defend himself. But there's Cowboys fans out there who's just like, well, I'm tired of going into the playoffs and losing in the first round, and it's always only because of Dak Prescott, or the majority of the reason it's because of Dak Prescott. It's time for something else. I'd rather be bad for a couple of years than do what we do. And what I'm saying is that you can't tell me after the presser that we just saw yesterday that you believe that it's only going to be a few years. And you even said it on the last episode that we did, that thank the Lord that Tony Romo fell into our laps. And then after that, Dak Prescott fell into our laps. And even to say this, Jerry didn't even want to draft Dak Prescott. His first choice was Connor Cook.
Yeah.
But Connor Cook went to the Raiders before him. He liked Connor Cook more than Dak Prescott. So do we actually truly trust that Jerry Jones is going to be able to figure it out and finally put a team together? Because again, and now I'm thinking of this. Jerry Jones is holding on to 3 Super Bowls, to where, yes, he was the GM, but he also had Jimmy Johnson, who loved to pick talent too. And since Jimmy Johnson left, what has Jerry Jones done but make Dallas the most popular team?
Well, I think Will McClay, having Will McClay on your staff is going to help, because I think, and maybe before I was overreacting a little bit. I think they'll always be able to put teams together. I do think that.
I think so too.
They're like the 49ers. They know how to draft. I mean, free agency has just never been a thing ever since Dion and Charles Haley. But they have been able to draft really well. My only hesitation has been, what are they going to do at the quarterback position? Because Tony Romo did fall in their lap. And that was before they were able to put together rosters. So the fact that Tony Romo was able to ever do anything as a Dallas Cowboys quarterback was no short of a miracle when
With
Tony Romo was
don't
around.
forget Jason Garrett was the head coach as well.
Exactly. And so also Dak Prescott falling in their lap was like a godsend because I think he plays a more calculated, decisive style than Tony. Tony was very gunslinger and highlight reel type thing, but I think Tony was better than most people give him credit for. But once Dak Prescott leaves the building, now we're kind of hoping that someone again will fall into their lap, and maybe they're the Green Bay Packers where they can get Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, and Jordan Love in the next 3 decades. Maybe this is where we're at right now, but time will tell, and I'm not confident in that. So, yeah, that's kind of. Are they able to put together rosters? Yes, but at the quarterback position, I'm not so sure. And if they're going to blow all of this up, then we're starting from scratch. And I think that's where you alluded to having a couple of years to kind of be in. I don't want to say dark ages because it's not going to be that bad, but where you're mediocre and nothing else.
Yeah.
But I guess people would rather us be mediocre than put together 12 wins and have false hope and lose in the first round.
Yeah, and what I'm not saying is necessarily like that things are going to change with Dak Prescott. But I think that, I mean, coaching is a factor in this too. Now, I felt bad for Mike McCarthy of him just sitting there. He only got 2 questions that was asked of him in that entire presser, and he was great. He gave really great, strong, clear answers to questions, even one about his contract.
Mm-hmm.
But as much as I respect Mike McCarthy in that moment, overall, when you talk about him as a coach, I don't think that he's the coach that can get you to a Super Bowl. I mean, we've highlighted it in the past. Every time we have a big game, the Cowboys aren't ready to play. It was the same issue that we had with Jason Garrett. And so do I trust Will McClay to help put rosters together that will be very, very good? Yeah, I do. But we're still facing the same problem. We're going to face the same problem to where we can't seem to get over the hump unless we have a generational type quarterback and a good to great head coach who has his team ready to play. Now, if you tell me that we're getting a great head coach and then it's like, all right, now we're putting the roster together. Okay, my mind's changed.
Mm-hmm.
To some extent, because then I said, well, why couldn't you bring a coach like that in when you had Tony Romo or Dak Prescott? But at that point, I'll change my tune. But as long as we continue to get these kind of average to below average head coaches, like you can put the roster together however you want, they're not going to do anything.
Yeah, and I think we're the 3 of us are in agreement that Dak Prescott is not a generational quarterback. We understand that.
Correct.
So what you do need is a great head coach to
I think every quarterback does, even if they are generational.
Well, yeah, and like we talk about Brock Purdy a lot, but the reason why he has the ability to probably go more of a distance than all these other quarterbacks is because of his coaching.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
And so he has the roster to do it, obviously, but you also need the coaching on top of it. When you are the quarterback of the team that may not have the pedigree of a Patrick Mahomes, a Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, those types of things. So I'm with you. I think this will always be, unless you get the generational talent like a Patrick Mahomes, you're going to need the coaching on top of it. And I don't know if Jerry's going to be able to swallow his pride enough to make that happen.
Yeah. No, I agree. But that was just a little rant, something I just want to talk about. But let's head into our first segment, which is training camp news. The NFL training camp season is now here as teams meet and prepare. We have a couple of quarterback battles that are happening around the league, which we'll talk about next time on the show. But there's a couple of questions that I want to ask you, Daniel. Just some news that has come out. So you have Jordan Love, Trent Williams, Brandon Ayuk, and CeeDee Lamb are all not practicing right now because they're holding out for new contracts. Of all the players that I've named, Love, Williams, Ayuk, Lamb, what are your thoughts on these contracts? Who do you think should pay? These teams should pay, and what do you just make of how significant are these holdouts for these teams?
I think the one that should be paid is Jordan Love. Obviously, on this show specifically, we're very hesitant to crown someone this early
Yeah,
in terms of like, hey, they're ready, they deserve the bag. Um, I know the three of us we love CJ Stroud, and we were smart enough to put him in our top 5 already after 1 year. And I think Savage was a little bit more hesitant to love on Jordan Love. Everyone remembers the historic rant that he had about Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers before the NFC wildcard game.
yeah,
But I think even then he kind of won Savage over. Even against the 49ers, yes, he threw an interception in the game, but he did show something with not, and I think that receiving core will be ranked higher this year than it was last year.
yeah.
But
It's a good young talent.
again, it's very comparable to CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans. We didn't know what they could be, but they did prove something by the end of the year. So
Mhm.
for me, I think it's a no-brainer. Jordan Love should be paid. Again, this is going to be another year that we're going to watch him very closely, but I think a good bet is that Jordan Love will get better and he'll produce. So for me, he's the safest bet. The one that I wouldn't, if I'm that team, I wouldn't worry about it that much is Brandon Ayuk. Um, that whole situation to me has been very weird, and I haven't talked to Abraham about it, but I'm curious to get his thoughts on it. So Abraham, if you're listening, I want to hear your thoughts on that whole situation. But I don't think the 49ers struggle with wide receivers that much. I don't
Mm.
know if it's, and again, Nick Wright is always in my mind when talking about the 49ers because they have to save enough money for Brock. Because I don't know if you saw this yesterday, but what his deal is going to look like, most likely, is a 5-year, $325 million contract, which is 65 per. I don't know if they're
Yeah,
going to be able to afford that if they sign Brandon Ayuk as well. And so I think that's also playing a big factor into it. Trent Williams is also a guy that I'm not worried about. I'm kind of annoyed that he's kind of holding out right now. Dude, you're like 35 years old and you've been injured.
yeah,
What are you asking more money for? Be happy with the contract that you have. If you want to restructure it so you can get more in your signing bonus, fine, do that. But those two, I'm not really concerned about. I would sign Jordan Love though.
yeah, yeah. I'm with you. I think with Jordan Love, it's pretty much what we're saying with all quarterbacks. But Jordan Love's he's won a playoff game, and
Yeah.
for the first half of his second playoff game, he looked really, really good. Was able to hold his own against San Francisco, where a lot of quarterbacks have struggled
Mm-hmm.
to play well. Again, I think it goes to coaching. I think it goes to the talent around him as well, them being ready to play, which is why he gets his money now, and why a guy like Tua, Miami's just like, we need to see another year
Mm-hmm.
before we do something. Um, so yeah, and the way that it's working now, you pay them now. If you believe that they're your franchise quarterback, you pay them now. And
Yeah, you
so
don't wait.
Trent Williams, he's going to get his deal done.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that 100%. They need him in order for them to be successful this
They do.
season.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon Ayuk, I think, is a special case. San Francisco, I don't think wants to trade him.
No, they don't.
Uh, and he's done a lot of talking in the offseason. It's funny because Brandon and CD, they're like polar opposites of what they've done so far.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon has been on podcasts saying like, "Oh, I'd love to go to this team," and "Oh, I want to be traded." And CD has not said anything.
Yeah.
And CD, again, what I'm learning is that like CD's also one of those untouchables when we talk about players that you can criticize on the Cowboys. Like Dak
Yeah.
Prescott's free game. CD's a guy that you can't really complain about.
Yeah, I can.
Um,
Watch me.
yeah. those two drops just are just in my mind. And just his attitude and his body language. That's why it's hard for me to be like, oh yeah, I give him 35 million. I want him to get paid, and I want him to get paid well. I just don't know if he's done enough when it matters to earn that money, especially if we're gonna have the same energy for Dak Prescott and other players across the league.
That's where I'm at right now. I'm at that total, like, dude, everyone's going crazy about him because of what he did in the regular season.
And it was impressive.
Isn't that what we're trying to get away from? Isn't that the same metric that we're judging, like, oh, Dak Prescott's a regular season quarterback? Well, CeeDee Lamb hasn't showed me that he's anything other than a regular season wide receiver yet. He hasn't shown me anything. He showed me 2 drops in the first drive, which one would argue would be the tone setter of the game.
Oh, that first drop would have been, because he catches that. I mean, it was a potential, like,
There's like a 20, 30-yard gain, I think.
It was close. I mean, it was going to be a big play, like definitely a tone setter. So, but I understand that Dak Prescott doesn't have the year that he has without CeeDee Lamb. Like, there's acknowledgement of that as well. But 35 million is hard for me to like reconcile, especially when we have all this energy for Dak Prescott and for these other players. But he's going to get his contract done as well. I don't see Jerry Jones letting him sit any more time than he has to get this deal done. And I want him to get his money first before we even talk about Dak Prescott and his money. CD needs to get that done. Now, this one's pretty interesting. To just stay in the NFC East, Jalen Hurts made comments at the Eagles' first training camp session about what it's been like learning the new offense with Kellen Moore as the offensive coordinator. And he says, like, it's different. It's crazy. It's going to take some time to really get into it, just because there's so much to unpack and to learn. And it's me learning like another offense. Some people took that as Jalen Hurts building in excuses heading into the season if the offense doesn't look well. Daniel, what are your thoughts about people who are saying that? And do you think that this Hurts-Moore combination is going to work in Philadelphia this season?
I don't know if it'll work. I think I need to see Kellen Moore have success with anyone other than Dak Prescott. The excuse building, I mean, I'm not going to put much stock into it, because whether or not he's going to make excuses, I don't think anybody's going to give him any excuses. No one's going to really give him a pass for this, because the problem was, hey, your OC took the fall. Come to find out, Nick Sirianni was calling the plays. And then you get an OC who's had success and has had the number one offense before, I think for 2 years or 2 or 3 years in a row with Dak Prescott, who many people don't think are better than you. So for me, I don't think he's going to get an excuse. At least from over here, he's not going to get any excuses, because if we're saying Dak Prescott's not better than you and you can't have the number one offense, then something's wrong with you. Especially with Saquon Barkley, you have A.J. Brown, you have Devontae Smith, you have Dallas Goedert.
One of the best offensive lines in the league still.
So for me, I think what excuse do you have? What excuse do you have? None. So he can make all the excuses he wants. I'm not going to give him any, and I don't think a lot of people are either. So that's where I'm at with Jalen. I think, were people a bit premature to crown him early? Yeah, I think so.
I think we were.
Do I think that his offensive coordinator had a lot to do with that? Absolutely, I did. And so, say what you will about Kellen Moore, but he knows how to run a number one offense in this league. and you would expect that he has the personnel to do that again. So go do it. If you're better than Dak Prescott, which a lot of Eagles fans will say, then you need to have the number one offense this year. No excuses.
Mm. Yeah,
Strong take for me.
Yeah, that was really well said. You're more high on Kellen Moore than I am.
Well, I'm not high on him, but I'm also not going to ignore
what everyone's been saying.
What he's done. I think the stats, the rankings speak for themselves. He's had the number one offense. But the reason why I'm putting that stock is because everyone's already dismissive about Dak.
Mm-hmm.
So two things can't be true. Either Dak Prescott was the reason they had the number one offense, or Kellen Moore was. So I'm basing about what everybody else thinks about Dak Prescott.
Yeah.
I think Dak Prescott's the reason why they had the number one offense.
I'm with you. I agree 100%.
But that's not what other people think. So if that's true, then that means Kellen Moore was responsible. And if Kellen Moore wasn't responsible and it's the roster, the Philadelphia Eagles have a really good offensive squad. So they should make it work, correct?
If
Jalen is better than Dak?
Yeah.
That's what I'm basing off of.
Yeah.
I don't think that highly of Kellen. I think other people do.
Yeah.
Because they have to.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you 100%. I think that for Jalen Hurts, he doesn't get a pass this season. He gets a pass from me for last year, because last year was just...
That was his pass. Yeah, agreed.
It was so bad. We knew that the offense was bad. Now, maybe some people were asking the question, was just like, well, why did he jump from 3 to like out of your list? Because I think I probably have him ranked at like 12 or 13.
Yeah, that's probably where he would sit for me.
And I think it's because like we just... he didn't play the same, didn't perform the same. He turned the ball over even more.
Yeah.
And we knocked and we criticized Dak for doing that. And you blow, what, 6 of your last 7 games?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, that matters. But I think for Jalen Hurts, this is the year of like, hey, you want to get back in the top 10? You think that you're better than Dak Prescott? You have the offensive coordinator and you have a better roster. Because what I don't want people to forget is that Dak was like the number one offense, and all he had at receiver was CeeDee Lamb. And maybe Amari Cooper.
Yeah, I think he had... I don't know how I think maybe it's 2 years that CD and Amari played together, or maybe it was 1.
It was 2 with Dak, because the first year, that's when Dak broke his ankle.
Right.
But they had at least 2 years with them, and they played really, really well. But A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, you got Swift last year, who was really good. You had Goddard.
Saquon.
Now you got Saquon. Like, you have the team to go and to be the number one offense. And I think when we came into this season, like, we're looking in and we're saying, man, Philly's probably winning the division because of all the work that they done in the offseason to put this team around them. So I think you're absolutely right. There are no excuses. I don't know if it's going to work, but I'm going based off of what I think of Kellen Moore. I think that Kellen Moore was carried by Dak Prescott.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see Jalen Hurts, because I don't think that Jalen is a better quarterback than Dak. I don't know if Jalen can carry Kellen. And so for me, he kind of will have an excuse if it doesn't go well, because I don't think highly of Kellen Moore at all.
So the excuse is Jalen Hurts not good enough.
I don't think that he's that level.
Because that will be the reason. If they don't work, it's because he's not good enough.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
We'll see. So either way, what you're saying is that I don't think very highly of Jalen Hurts either. At least as highly as Dak.
I think you...
Because I think he is a good quarterback.
Yeah, I don't think you think he's as good as Dak Prescott. And this is going to determine it.
Yeah.
This will. Sure. because we know what Dak has done with Kellen. Now, Jalen, let's see what you do with Kellen.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Our next segment is going to be we are ranking the top 5 quarterbacks in the AFC heading into the 2024-2025 season. This list is based on this simple question: who would you take if all AFC quarterbacks are available? I already have my list put together. I already have my top 5, Daniel. If you want me to just go ahead and list off who I have, and then you can tell me based on that what you would change and who you would have. Clearly at number 1, I have Patrick Mahomes. He's the best quarterback in the league, greatest of all time already. He's just making his case currently right now. At number 2, I have CJ Stroud. I can say this with 100% confidence. Daniel can attest to this, and Savage could attest to this. I've been on the CJ Stroud bandwagon.
Yeah.
Probably since the very beginning. I think we were like 7 games possibly into the season.
They were like season. Yeah, we were
like 4-3.
Yeah.
And I said like the most surprising player was CJ Stroud and how he's playing on this team. So I've been on his bandwagon from the jump. I just think that he is the best quarterback in Texas. I do think he's better than Dak Prescott. Has this poise, has been very successful, has done things that we didn't expect him to do in year 1 in Houston to get them to the playoffs and to win a playoff game. Now you have him with a stacked team offensively with a great head coach heading into their second season. I don't know how you can't trust CJ Stroud, because even when they lost against Baltimore, it wasn't because of him. It's because the inexperience of his offensive line of his team of committing the most amount of penalties, shooting themselves in the foot, which you would expect from a young football team going against a powerhouse like Baltimore. It wasn't because of CJ Stroud. I thought CJ still played really, really well in that game, was making insane throws that just receivers and tight ends couldn't come up with. But I trust CJ Stroud. I think he's going to be a really good football player, a really good quarterback, and I trust him. I would take him at number 2. At number 3, I have Lamar Jackson. I have Lamar Jackson just because of his ability and what he can do now that he has Derrick Henry. And now with Zay Flowers heading into his second season, hopefully Rashad Bateman could be more healthy. Same thing with Mark Andrews, this offensive line. This team's stacked. Yes, did he have the failures in the AFC Championship game? Yes, absolutely. But I believe that he's going to eventually get over the hump because he has the coaching. He has the offense now. So I'm going to give him time, and I think that he can actually do it. And we've seen what he's done in the regular season. He's a quarterback that you can trust. It's that postseason that you really just have to think about, and you just have to believe that he can do it. At number 4, I have Josh Allen. I've made noise around the Twitter space for how I feel about Josh Allen. Insanely talented. He's really fun to watch. Has a cannon of an arm. But when you need him to make the plays to win, he hasn't done it. People like to always bring up, well, if Stephon Diggs catches that pass, well, guess what? Where they eventually ended up, or where they were going to be in that play, they eventually got there. And then what did he do in the moment when he needed to make a play? Didn't make it. And since he got his contract, and since we crowned him as the number 2 quarterback in the NFL, what has he done? Hasn't been back to the AFC Championship game since.
He's living off an AFC Championship game that he was at 4 years ago.
Exactly. So I need him to update his resume, and he hasn't done that. They took the ball out of the air towards the end of last season. And what I mean, well, actually, I was corrected. He was still throwing the ball a lot. He just wasn't throwing it well.
Well, no. I saw a statistic where before, I don't know who Joe Brady, when he took over the offense.
Yeah, Joe Brady. Yeah.
They were throwing about 56, 58% of the time. After that, he only threw the ball 48% of the time, which at the time was the league worst. They were throwing the ball the least amount of time out of any team in the NFL at that time.
Yeah.
So they did take the ball out of his hands.
Well, what I mean by that is there were some games he was still throwing it 38 times in the game. Like they were still throwing the ball in the air in terms of maybe attempts in specific games.
Okay.
But I think overall, I'm with you. They purposely said we're going to run the ball more
than we're going
take
to
the
throw.
ball out of the air, and people are just like, well, he was great in that last stretch. 5 touchdowns and 4 interceptions in that last stretch.
Not great.
Now, as a runner,
his running statistics were amazing.
Yeah, he was scoring a bunch of touchdowns on the ground. But when we're talking about quarterbacks, who what I would rather take, there's no way that you can tell me that you're taking Josh Allen over these other guys and taking the turnovers with it, because the turnovers are going to be there. Those haven't really gone away, and they're not going to. And I think that Josh Allen has been in a situation to where say whatever you want about how the Bills defense were statistically, but imagine if Dak Prescott threw 18 interceptions.
Well, that's what people thought he was going to do this year.
Well,
after he threw 15, the sky was falling, and everyone thought this is who he is now. He's a turnover machine,
and it was a problem. But what I'm saying is that when it comes to Josh Allen, I think he had a defense that they were so good that they were able to overcome his turnovers and continue to be successful. Mm-hmm. I don't think every team has that.
No.
And so I don't think that you can take Josh Allen from one team, put him on another team, and you find the same success, because those turnovers are going to be a problem for someone else's defense. Well, it wasn't a problem in Buffalo.
Yeah, and also like Brian Daboll, a lot of people would credit what he was able to do to him. And also he was not able to really shine until he got Stephon Diggs.
Correct.
So that also, like, again, I need to see him do it with a new number 1 wide receiver, not Stephon Diggs.
Yeah. And so that's why I have him at number 4. At number 5, I do have Joe Burrow. The reason why I have him at number 5 is only just because of health.
Okay.
Just injury. I just can't trust his body to be able to hold up for an NFL season. I think that, though, if he puts together a full season, he's going to go up on my list, because what I do think is that at his spot at number 2 on our overall quarterback ranking list, he is in the hot seat this year to keep that spot.
Is it
if he doesn't stay healthy? So those are my top 5 quarterbacks coming out of the AFC.
I mean, yeah, mine's might be slightly different. I think Patrick Mahomes at 1, obviously. I am gonna go Joe Burrow at 2. This is my list, assuming everybody's gonna be healthy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where my list comes from. CJ Stroud at number 3, Lamar Jackson at 4, and Josh Allen at 5.
I think honestly, though, yeah, you're right. If we're assuming everyone's healthy,
assuming everybody's healthy, Patrick Mahomes,
that's
Joe
a good
Burrow,
list.
CJ Stroud, Lamar Jackson, and Josh Allen. And again, I've also been on record on this podcast. I just don't like the style of play that he exhibits.
Yeah.
And I think like the turnovers would be too much for me. If I'm picking a quarterback that's going to have a ready roster, Lamar is better than Josh right now. Just how they play
quarterback position better than Josh.
Yeah, like his winning percentage is a lot better. He has 2 MVPs, and they both have the same problem. They need to figure it out in the postseason.
Yeah.
Because they've had opportunities to win games, and each of them have not done that.
Well, and I think what people will say, though, is like, well, Josh Allen has 5 wins in the postseason. Well, when the opposing quarterback is Skylar Thompson, an aging Phillip Rivers, Mason Rudolph,
those are his wins. His wins are like they get just good enough to get into the playoffs, but they can't beat the Kansas City Chiefs to get the number 1 seed or Baltimore. So they play easy teams in the wild card round.
Yeah.
And that's how he stacks wins. He stacks wins by playing pretty bad teams in the first round and then plays a real team like the Chiefs and then loses. That's what he's done. So yeah,
Well,
I'm with you. I'm not going to put any stock to his 5 playoff wins, because
well,
who has he beat?
because
Nobody.
yeah, well, because people will say the same thing about Dak's, and I know I'm talking about Dak a lot, but I'm I'm just showing you how unfair because people will look at that Tampa game and say, well,
Aging Tom Brady.
yeah, it was an aging Tom Brady's against an 8-9 Tampa Bay team. Well, you're playing a Miami team with Skylar Thompson at quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
You're playing a Pittsburgh Steelers team
With Mason Rudolph.
And without TJ Watt, their best player.
Mm-hmm.
And you're saying, like, nope, he gets it done in the playoffs. He shows up.
If you don't show up against Skylar Thompson, I don't know what's wrong with you.
Yeah. And so that's why I'm with you. I think, but what I will say is that Lamar, I think in this point of the season, doesn't have an excuse, because I'm not saying I give him a pass for last year.
I don't.
But I will acknowledge is that in the AFC Championship game, they completely went away from what worked for them, like at the start of the game.
True.
And that's on coaching to some extent.
Yeah.
But then you did have the interception late in the ball game that you didn't need to throw. And so I think that's where we're just like, well, Lamar, you're going to have to prove it this year. This is the year that you go and get it done.
Yeah.
And
again, nobody's writing any of these quarterbacks off. No one's saying they won't ever win. We just need to see more.
Yeah, well, and I think that's important to say. I think Josh Allen is capable of leading a team back to the AFC Championship game, to a Super Bowl.
Well, yeah, I think the thing has always been he has he's one of the most talented quarterbacks in the league. If we're doing everything solely on talent,
yeah,
he's obviously top 3.
Yeah, for sure.
And he's probably number 2.
Yeah.
The problem is that he actually needs to reflect a year based on his talent. And he's yet to do that since 2020. And so that's all we're saying. Is we're not saying that he's not the second most talented quarterback in the league. He just needs to play like he's the second best quarterback in the league.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm with you 100%. But those are our quarterbacks, top 5 quarterbacks coming out of the AFC. Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, CJ Stroud, Lamar Jackson, and then Josh Allen at that 5th spot. As we kind of continue, we are going to break down 2 divisions in the AFC. Starting with the AFC North, we started talking about them a little bit. We were gonna do something different, but just for time's sake, we probably won't do that. We'll probably save that for another time. But we're just gonna go ahead and talk about these teams, where we have these teams finishing out in places. So let's start with the AFC North. We have Baltimore, Cincinnati, Cleveland, and Pittsburgh. Daniel, how do you have this division shaking out? And also just go ahead and tell us, which team do you think is going to be on the hot seat for this upcoming season?
This one's a tough one. I think my team on the hot seat is the Cincinnati Bengals. Just because, Joe Burrow has not been healthy. And they're still dealing with, Super Bowl loss, but also losing in the AFC Championship game the year after, to completely missing the playoffs this last year. With a quarterback who I think we all can agree, when healthy, is the second to third best quarterback in the National Football League. And so, assuming that he is healthy, and that's how we're doing this, is if they're all healthy, they need to either win the division, or they need to be in second place to gain a playoff spot. I think if they do anything less than that, now we're going to start having a conversation about Joe Burrow, and is he that guy still?
Yeah.
So that's my team on the hot seat. How I think this will shape up, however, is I think the order will be Baltimore, Cincinnati, and I'm going to go Pittsburgh over Cleveland.
Wow.
Yeah, and again, I'm totally okay with being wrong about this. I think 3 and 4, it's whatever. I just think that with Pittsburgh being able to Did they win 10 or 9 wins last year without good quarterback play? Now they have Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. Not saying that those two guys are good to great quarterbacks,
Mm-hmm.
but they'll give you more stability at the quarterback position, even if you want to, have Justin Fields play some, throughout the season.
Yeah, correct.
I would take that. I just don't believe in Deshaun Watson
Yeah, no,
at all.
that's fair.
I don't. Now, if Joe Flacco was the starting quarterback, then I would give Cleveland the nod here. But I don't think that Deshaun Watson is gonna. I think he's cooked. I think this is his year to prove that he is the Deshaun Watson or some semblance of the guy that he was when he was in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
This is a year for him to do that, and I don't know if he's going to do that. So that's why I'm going to put Pittsburgh over Cleveland. But on the hot seat, Cincinnati.
Yeah. I'm going to go with the Cleveland Browns as my hot seat team. The reason why I have them on the hot seat is because, again, we're talking about the organization. You gave Deshaun Watson a fully guaranteed $253 million, or maybe it was like 235, something around there. But you gave him a fully guaranteed contract. What has he done since he's been on the team?
Nothing.
He's done nothing. So now you're heading into this year and be like, we need to get some return for our investment.
Mm-hmm.
Because they put all of their stock on him.
Yeah.
So he has to go and he has to get it done. And they have to make the playoffs. But actually for Cleveland, they have to win the division. That's why you brought Deshaun Watson on your
that's
team.
like the bare minimum, especially with the defensive talent that you have on that team.
They have a stellar defense. Now, look at their numbers when they're on the road. They were the worst. So there's got to be some adjustments there as well. But you brought in Deshaun Watson not to just like, oh yeah, we want to try and get into the playoff. You thought that he was the missing piece to a championship team. That's why you let go of Baker Mayfield. And now he's having more success than Deshaun Watson is in Tampa Bay. So you need to win the division and you need to make a deep run in the playoffs. Otherwise, you've wasted your time and you've wasted all that money on Deshaun Watson. So I think Cleveland has to be on the hot seat for me. But I'm with you. I don't trust it. I don't think it's going to go well.
Yeah, I don't think it is.
But I do trust that defense. So that's why my order is going to be Baltimore, Cincinnati, Cleveland, and then Pittsburgh. Just because I don't know which quarterbacks we're getting from Pittsburgh.
I think they're going to be better than Deshaun.
Well, I mean, Deshaun, even though his numbers weren't that great, he did go into Baltimore and beat Baltimore last year.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know what I've at least seen Deshaun Watson, and I know what I'm getting. And I've seen how this defense has played as well with Deshaun Watson at quarterback. I mean, even though he wasn't necessarily great last year, he only had an 84.3 passer rating. They were 5-1 with him at quarterback. They were 5-1. And so I know that they can win with Deshaun. I don't know if Pittsburgh can win with Russell Wilson or Justin Fields. I need to see that happening. Now, I believe in Russell Wilson, and we're going to talk about him here in a little bit. I do believe in him, but I don't know if I trust the offense coordinator in Pittsburgh. He was the coach at Atlanta. I'm trying to remember what his name was. Arthur Smith. Arthur Smith. Yeah. I don't know if I trust him.
Yeah, and I wouldn't either.
So and like you said, I'm okay with being wrong with my 3 and 4.
Yeah.
But 1 and 2, I feel pretty confident about that. I just think Baltimore is more loaded.
Yeah.
Have a better roster. The running game is going to be really good with Derrick Henry and with Lamar Jackson. Because again, Lamar he does so much.
Right.
And he's a really good thrower of the football. We just need to see in the postseason for sure. When we're talking about the regular season, Baltimore, they have the team, and until someone knocks them out, I'm going to trust in them and what they can do.
Yeah. I'm with
So
you.
next is the AFC South. So you have Houston, Indianapolis, Jacksonville, Tennessee. Daniel, which team do you think is in the hot seat, and how do you see this division shaking out?
The team in the hot seat, obviously the Jacksonville Jaguars, because you talk about a team who in the year before had a great year, got to 10 wins, first year under Doug Peterson, going to the playoff, kind of didn't think they were going to win it after the first half that Trevor Lawrence had, throwing 4 interceptions, then come back to win the game. You go into the next season believing, okay, this is a team on the rise. This is a team that's going to get better and may be a force in the AFC. Started off that way, went 83 to start the year. Then the litany of injuries that happened, Trevor Lawrence ultimately going down, kind of ruining your season at that point. With the emergence of the Houston Texans, also the little ray of hope that was happening for the Indianapolis Colts with Anthony Richardson that was stifled by his own injury.
Yeah.
There's now competition in that division. And so for me, I think Jacksonville needs to prove, I don't think they need to prove that they're better than Houston, because I think everyone will agree that Houston is probably the team that's going to challenge the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC. But you need, especially giving Trevor Lawrence $55 million a year.
Yeah.
When in what people would say he didn't earn that contract.
Correct.
Now you have to back that up. With the new contract come the expectations.
Yeah.
So you need to, I don't know if anyone's going to really believe that they should win the division with CJ Stroud there and the team that they've assembled. But you need to make the playoffs, and you need to win a playoff game and be competitive in the next round.
Yeah.
So for me, on the hot seat is Jacksonville, and I have the order. I do think it's going to be Houston, Jacksonville, Indianapolis, and Tennessee. Those are my picks for the year.
Yeah, I'm. There's really not much I can add. I agree with you. Jacksonville is on the hot seat. I think with Indianapolis, Anthony Richardson is coming back from injury. Saw some clips of just, he's still trying. He's a little bit rusty, trying to get back into, but he's coming back for hopefully his first ever full season as the quarterback. Tennessee just got a new coach. They're building something there, but Will Levis is coming into his first full season as well. Can't really have any expectations from them. We just have to watch and see how they develop and see if they are the guys to carry their franchises.
Yeah.
Houston, they did the work in the offseason. Now, if it doesn't work this year and they don't look very, very good, if they have a sophomore slump, then maybe the year after that they can be on the hot seat. But Jacksonville, you just paid your quarterback all this money.
Yeah.
You got Doug Peterson. You had a collapse at the end of the season to miss the playoffs, knowing Trevor Lawrence was hurt.
Yeah.
But he continued to play. We don't give any excuses to anybody else because they were hurt. So you're stepping into this season with a new contract, new confidence. This is our franchise guy. Like, I think with the expectations you set for them was perfect. They're not a better team than Houston.
Yeah.
You should make it to the playoffs. You should win a playoff game. You should be competitive. Those are the expectations for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I have it shaken out the same way that you do. Houston, Jacksonville, Indianapolis, and then Tennessee.
Yeah.
I could potentially see Indy finishing in second place.
Yeah, they could. I'm not saying that they won't. I need to see it actually happen. I need to see them play a bigger sample size of games with Anthony Richardson as their starter before I can make that claim, though.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Absolutely. All right, but we're going to keep doing that. We'll do AFC East and AFC West next week when we do another episode, just to continue this out. But our final segment for today is another entry in quarterback legacies, and this is the one that I brought to the table. We're going to talk about Russell Wilson. So Russell Wilson is currently the starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers in his first season with the team. He was originally drafted by the Seattle Seahawks as a third round and 75th overall pick. He spent 10 seasons with them, followed by 2 seasons with the Denver Broncos. He's a one-time second-team All-Pro, a one-time passer rating leader, a one-time touchdown passing leader, and he is a 9-time Pro Bowler with a regular season record of 115, 75, and 1, winning 60.5% of his games. He's thrown for over 43,000 yards, has a 64.7 completion percentage with 334 touchdowns with 106 interceptions. He is 9-7 in the playoffs with a Super Bowl win and a Super Bowl appearance. That second appearance is the legendary, infamous interception at the end of the game to lose to the New England Patriots on the 1-yard line. His career has been up and down in terms of narrative. He's been vilified coming out of Seattle and into Denver. Things have been said about him in the media. Broncos country, let's ride, all of that stuff. But Daniel, what do you think is the overall legacy of Russell Wilson?
He's a good quarterback, not great quarterback. I think that is his legacy. I think in his years in Seattle, I think right towards the middle of his career there, I think there was he
was a top 5 quarterback.
Arguably. Yeah, because of the way that he played, how accurate his deep ball was unmatched at the time. And so I think as you begin to uncover what went behind the scenes, like no one in Seattle really liked him that very much. They try to put the ball in his hands whenever it should have been in someone else's hands. So those types of things kind of, ding his legacy a little bit. And then also how he ended his time in Seattle was just not great. And also his year and 2 years in Denver were just abysmal. That frankly ruined that legacy. Now, whether he's going to take, excuse me, sorry. He's going to take these 2, how many years we think he's going to be in Pittsburgh. Can he redeem part of that? Maybe.
Yeah.
But that's what his legacy is right now. Good, not great quarterback. Some behavioral things off the field have just really tarnished that legacy that we thought was there, but, kind of ruined it. So,
yeah, I don't know how I feel about those kind of allegations. They were said, but I trust Richard Sherman as far as I can throw him.
Sure,
especially what he has to say. But we know what happened in Denver. Your personal, your own office, parking spot. That doesn't really do good for your legacy.
Yeah. And had he won in Denver, then you can be like, well, at least he won he won a Super Bowl there,
Yeah.
But the fact is that they weren't competitive.
Yeah, they weren't, not at all. I think for Russell Wilson, though, his second season in Denver
was better, way better.
I think his numbers were like 26 touchdowns, only 8 interceptions that year.
Yeah.
He wasn't being asked to be like that gunslinger quarterback. Like,
kind of got screwed that year.
But he did make a bunch of game-winning plays at the end of games. He was game managing for a lot, which is what he was doing in his early years in Seattle. And then you're asking him, hey, make a play or two, help us put over the top. And he was doing that. Yeah. I think it was just Sean Payton did not want him there.
Did not.
And that was unfortunate because I think that Russell Wilson was playing well. I think he was playing well. And winning games and being successful. But I think Sean Payton I think the legacy of Sean Payton has definitely taken a hit for me.
Oh, for sure. And he better do something within the next couple of years or it's going to be, hey, you were lucky that Drew Brees decided to go to you instead of Miami.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we're talking about the overall legacy, I think I agree with you. To me, he's a very good quarterback.
Very good.
At moments, he was great, but kind of what we talk about with other quarterbacks, just not great when he needed to be, especially when he was asked to be the focal point of the offense. I mean, we've
Yeah.
never seen that. Which is why I think his time in Pittsburgh is going to be very interesting for his legacy, is because I don't think Pittsburgh is going to be asking him to be this, insane elite quarterback. You need to be a top 5
Just give
quarterback.
us stable quarterback play.
Give a stable quarterback play, be top 15, top 10 quarterback. I think he can still do that. And if he's able to do that, let's say that he's able to get Pittsburgh over the top and to win a Super Bowl. I mean, I'm not saying that he will, but I guess what I'm saying is I agree with you. Like, what happens at Pittsburgh can either help his legacy or helps it keep it the same. I don't think his legacy can get worse, but it can get better. So with that being said, with all the achievements that he does have a Super Bowl ring. He's had very, very successful seasons. Is he currently right now Hall of Fame?
No, he's not. Because the Super Bowl that he did win, a lot of people contribute that to the Legion of Boom. And then when you put the ball in his hands in the Super Bowl to beat Tom Brady of all people,
it's a bad play call, man.
Bad play call.
And he was driving down the field before that. And he was playing really well before that.
People want to talk about Brock Purdy's miraculous throw that hit the face mask of a Detroit Lion for them to win the NFC Championship game. He had a similar throw to Curse.
Yeah.
So, I think had he won that Super Bowl with a throw, then
even with a run, I think.
I don't know.
Even if you give it to,
I'm still going to say no, not a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I think if he would have won it, I would say he is a Hall of Famer. But
I would still say no, even had he.
But again, I'm a fan of Russell Wilson. Daniel knows this. He was my Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, coming out of college.
Coming out of college, I liked him a lot.
Yeah.
I was cheering for Seattle, and I thought that I was going to become a Seattle Seahawks fan.
Yeah.
And then they played Dallas, and I was like, no, I'm not a fan. I'm still cheering for Dallas. But that's going to do it for Double Take, a football podcast. Thank you so much for joining and for listening to us. If you have any responses to the Cowboys, to Josh Allen, because we talked a lot about Josh Allen, about these AFC teams and how they're going to do. If you have a comment about the Eagles and Jalen Hurts, man, or any of these holdouts, man, let us know in the comments. We'd love to connect with you and to talk with you. But as we close the show,
David will, not me.
Yeah, Daniel will not. But before we close the show, just want to make a special announcement for the podcast, as this is the final season of Double Take, an NFL and football podcast. We are going to transition. We're still going to be called Double Take. It's going to be Double Take, a sports podcast where we'll have more segments on the show dedicated to specific sports. We're going to cover the NFL, college football, and the NBA, with each member of the team hosting each segment. So Daniel is going to take over our NFL coverage. I'm going to be doing college football, and Savage is going to handle our basketball segments. Episodes are going to remain up on this current YouTube channel and on our podcast, but we're going to be launching a brand new YouTube channel and podcast for that show. So if you would help us to get up and running for August, which is when we're going to release this new show, follow the new channel at Double Take, a sports podcast. The link is going to be in the description. For now, episodes will still be coming on this channel, but stay tuned for updates and for announcements of changes. But Dan, do you have anything to add about what we're doing?
No, I'm super excited. I think this is going to open a more interactive community in terms of sports, talking about the NBA, obviously talking about college football. I'm going to start watching college football now because of, the segments that we're going to do. So I'm excited to get more invested into that space. And also I'm going to have some fun with this NFL thing because there's a lot of segments that we're kicking up for the NFL. And so I'm excited for you guys to get to be a part of those.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna have each one of us is gonna have a segment in the NFL throughout the season.
Mhm.
Don't want to share what that is quite yet because those will be announced here pretty soon. But I'm excited. I'm excited for the future of this show and for this channel. And so hopefully you guys will join us in that. So make sure to follow and to share that podcast with your friends and get involved, get active. We'd love to see it. So for Daniel, this is David for the show. And until next time, God bless.